Okay. Recording has started, so Judy, whenever you to. So can you go into slides?
Yeah, that's right.
Presentation?
Okay.
It's at the bottom. Or which one at the bottom too?
Sorry about this.
Okay. So you go right here.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
That's another.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Glad to see some people that I know. And I'm going to be talking tonight about the falcons nesting in the church steeple in Manayunk in Philadelphia. Now, hopefully everybody knows where Manayunk is, but it's in Northwest Philly. It used to be famous for the Manayunk bike race, but it's right along the Schuylkill River in Northwest Philly. And so I'm going to be talking about these two birds that started to nest here. In this picture, this is a picture of the steeple. You'll see the male on top of the finial, and that's the female inside the nesting area. Okay, and first let me talk a little bit about peregrine falcon history. Peregrines are all over the world except Antarctica. In the 1950s, after World War II, there was widespread agricultural use of DDT. And by the late 1960s, the eastern subspecies of the peregrine was wiped out. And it was almost wiped out in Midwest, and there were still some in the Western US. In 1972, DDT was banned, and this was what was leading to their being wiped out. And in 1970, Dr. Tom Cade in Cornell, he started the Peregrine Fund and started captive breeding and reintroduction of peregrine falcons. Excuse me. Now, traditionally, in the wild, peregrines have nested on cliff sites. They have also, however, nested in urban areas from times of antiquity, from ancient Egypt. When they first tried reintroducing the peregrines, unfortunately, what happened was that they tried reintroducing them at cliff sites, and the young were killed by great horned owls. There was too much predation. Since they had been away, the peregrines had been away from the cliffs for so long. So then they started doing it at city sites and other sites, such as wildlife refuges. The cities have their own problems because in some ways, the cliff sites actually are better, and now peregrines are back at cliff sites. The cliff sites, if the young one on their first flight, they fall out of the nest, usually they can land on a ledge below the cliff. But in the city, they fall off of a building roof and they'll end up down in traffic. And there's also issues with them colliding with glass and buildings. That's one of the other reasons for peregrine death in the city. But their introduction program was successful. Eventually, the peregrines have gotten back to cliff sites. And in 1999, the EPA took the peregrines off the endangered species list. They were still listed as endangered in many states. By this time today, though, there have been over 7,000 captive breeders reintroduced. Okay, some facts about peregrines. You see that little thing hanging off the end of her beak. This is called the tomial tooth, and peregrines have this. Other raptors do not have this, and this enables them to quickly kill their prey. They grab it at they bite the neck, and then they sever the spinal cord, and the bird is dead. Other raptors takes them a lot longer to kill their prey. Peregrines they may be the fastest animal on Earth, or the fastest bird, certainly. Their cruising speed is about 45 miles per hour. In the chase, they go about 65 miles an hour, and in the dive, they've been recorded at over 200 miles per hour. The first year of peregrines, much like many other birds, 50 to 60% don't make it. If 2 to 3 years, if they live, then that's when they start breeding. In their second year is when they get their full adult plumage. The longest known peregrine in the wild is 19 years, and 25 years is the longest in captivity. And this picture here with the toenail tooth, this is a female from the St. John the Baptist nest. So in the beginning, I was there in February 17th, 2011. This is the Green Lane Bridge. If you've ever driven the Schuylkill Expressway, this is an exit off the Schuylkill. And I was walking on one side of the bridge with another birding friend of mine, and we spotted another birder on the other side. It was somebody that we were there looking for ducks in the river, and it was somebody I hadn't met before. And so this was Greg Gorton, who introduced himself to me. And while we were there, he spotted a peregrine on the nearby, there's a railroad bridge, maybe a couple hundred feet downriver, a big high railroad bridge, and he spotted a peregrine on one of the girders above the bridge. And that was the first time that we know of that anybody saw the peregrines in Manayunk. So after that, this is the bridge right now. This is actually a trail right now. This was the old railroad bridge, and they made it into a trail, so you can go walking on this. We started getting other reports about peregrines. This is 2 young ones that spring on the side of the church steeple. There's also sightings of on the towers. There's a train track right in front of the church, and there's been sightings of the peregrines on these electric towers above the trains. Also, there's evidence on the sidewalk all around the church. And this is something, if you go there during breeding season, you'll find on the church steps, you'll find all these dead little bird parts, body parts. And we've actually had the middle picture there is racing pigeons. There's actually, been some racing pigeons that have been found there. This was a fledgling female seen in 2011. And okay, this is the church, St. John the Baptist Roman Catholic Church. And this is a view from up above the church in Manayunk, looking at the tower. And this is a view from across the river. At the bottom of the screen there, you see the cars. That's the Schuylkill Expressway. And then where the trees are, there's the river. The church tower, it's the biggest church in Manayunk, and it's lit up at nighttime. So if you are driving down the Schuylkill Expressway, you'll see this church tower. Okay, and why did they like it here? Well, they had the penthouse suite. This is an opening above the bell tower, and at the time they started nesting here, there were openings on all 4 sides of the church. I mean, all 4 sides of the steeple. This was open to the inside. And this opening is there's about 4 feet below, there's the floor. Well, at the time the peregrines started nesting here, this area was inhabited by pigeons or rock doves. And that was until the peregrines took over. This is a view from the top of the church steeple. There's a park here. It's right next to the church. Here you see the train tracks. This is the Norristown Manayunk line. It used to be called the R6. I guess it's called the Manayunk Norristown line now. This is the railroad bridge where the first peregrines were first seen, and sometimes you can find them today perched on those girders. If you do walk on this bridge, people have reported seeing them there, and I've seen them there myself. Here's the river, and then here's the Schuylkill Expressway up on the left. Okay, so they have nice places to perch. This is near the top of the steeple. This is one of their eating spots. They get the right below the crucifix on top of the steeple. They like to hang out there and eat. Here's the female on the left, the male on the right. This is the male at his nighttime perch. And I'll show you the perches in a minute. This is something they had at the nesting spot, easy pickings. Right next to the church is two school buildings, and in between these two school buildings, well, it's full of pigeons. So easy pickings. And usually when I see the peregrines leave the steeple, they come back usually within like 2 or 3 minutes, with their dinner. Rarely 5 minutes, but it's usually pretty quick for them to find something and bring it back. These are some of their perches spots up here. Here you see there were openings on all 4 sides. This side is the southern exposure. That was their favorite spot where we see them coming in and out. There's finials all around. Right here on the side of the steeple, that's where the young usually perch after they fledge. There's finials here, here, here. On this side of the steeple facing the park, right in here, this is where the male would spend his nights. And the female, she spends her nights either inside in the nesting area, and she stays there until all the young have fledged. Once they fledge, and she comes out and she stays in one of these Celtic cross areas on the back side of the steeple. But you can also find them perched on the nearby electric towers. This right here, this is the 2 school buildings that and the passageway in between them. And this I want to point out later, a couple years ago, the same time the peregrines were nesting in the steeple, kestrels nested here on this part of the church, and they were fledging at the same time. It was pretty amazing. And I was really surprised, the peregrines let the kestrels alone. But needless to say, they didn't come back the next year. The kestrels were gone within a few days. They left the site, and needless to say, they didn't come back the next year. They have nice landlords. And one of the things I've talked to the Monsignor at the parish there, he's told me he really likes the peregrines, and what he's told me is that they're his favorite parishioners. They don't want anything. Okay. Here's the female, and she's called the falcon. Oh, and one thing I want to point out, when they're perched here, they're constantly moving their head. Every few seconds, they'll be facing this way, then they'll move it sideways and then back further, then back to center, then back the other way. So they're constantly moving every few seconds. They're constantly on the lookout. Okay, so the female, she's from Union County Courthouse in New Jersey. That's where her parents were. She was banded May 30th, 2008. And I'm going to click on this to see if it works. Okay. And they have a falcon page, with the falcon cam during the nesting season. Okay. Now, did I find it? Okay, let me go back to my PowerPoint here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's the female. The male, they're called the tiercel. And actually, I just recently learned tiercel's from a Latin word that means a third, because they are a third smaller than the female. And that's where that name comes from. After looking at them for a while, like I can tell the difference between the male and the female. It's pretty easy, but if you're not used to looking at them, you'd have a hard time telling them apart. Let me go back to the female. One particular thing about the females are bigger, but they're also very broader here in the shoulder area. then the males, okay, and she's got a full crop right there. So she recently had a meal. They do eat once a day, the adults. Okay, and so the male, he is from the Girard Point Bridge, which is the bridge that takes I-95 over the Schuylkill River down near the Navy Yard and the airport in Philly. And no, that's not right. This should be 2009. That's a little typo there. And this is the box under the bridge. This is not him, but this is another. There's still a pair nesting there. And this shows you looking at a peregrine in the box under the bridge. And how they banded these, they would actually rappel down from the bridge onto the lower level and you know, get the peregrine, bring it back up to the bridge, band it, and then go back down and place it back again. Okay, here's a peregrine falcon nesting activities timetable. So mid-February to mid-March, they're returning. They renew their bonds. They're displaying, defending their territory. The male will present gifts to the female, and then they do their thing. What I found, this is for this kind of state timetable, but it varies. What I found, and for the Manayunk Peregrines, they're back in December. They were here this December, and then January is when they really start taking up like full-time residence. You can see them pretty much throughout the day. You can see one or the other or both on the steeple. Okay, so mid-March to mid-April, the female is laying her eggs. She doesn't start incubating until just before the last egg is laid. And when she does incubate, it'll be for about 30 days. During this time, the male does all the hunting. And one of the things they do is called the nest exchange, where the male will come in and what he'll do is he'll catch a prey and he'll put it someplace nearby. He doesn't bring it to the nest area, but he puts it someplace nearby, and then he comes in and relieves the female, and he'll incubate the eggs. And then she'll go out and she'll know where it is, and then she'll have her meal. And a lot of times, what I've seen her, she may stay out for an hour or so. She'll come back to the church steeple, and she'll be sitting on the finial in the sun and just preening and you know, I guess enjoying the sunshine when she's out for a while. So then, and one of the things that I pay attention to is when the last day that I see the female, this is sometime in March, like mid-March, often like maybe March 19th. And then I'm not seeing the female anymore, except if I'm there at one of those times when they do a nest exchange. So then I know about a month later, that's when the eggs are going to be hatching. And then the female appears in the window again. Once the last one is hatched, that's when you start seeing her. And then the male brings food to the nest. So in late June, early July, the parents leave, and the young are, this is when it's so sad, the young are left there by themselves, and one by one, they leave too. Oh, I forgot to say, in the past, the fledglings were banded when they were about 45 days old, but so the young dispersed, and that's one of the saddest days after the last young one leaves. In Pennsylvania, however, in the majority of Pennsylvania nests, one adult remains at the nest site through the winter. So in Pennsylvania, the peregrines don't migrate. They stay here all year long. They say they may not be at the nest site, but they'll be around the area close by. Okay, so here in 2012, they're called I'm not sure if you say that Iases or Aeses, but there were two of them, one male and one female. At this point, they're 23 to 25 days old. And this is 2013. There were two males and two females, about 15 days old at this time. And you can see all the gravel, and it's covered with poop, I guess, from the pigeons before that. Okay, this is a shot. This is the female up there. I think it's the female eating, but what you can see that cloud of insects. They're all hanging around there. And you can see some feathers flying as well. Right down here, these are feathers flying. Here's a picture a little bit later of the young ones. Here's a fledgling at the window, and here's one on one of the electric towers right in front of the church. Now, a male from the 2013 St. John the Baptist nest was found nesting in 2015. This is him in Lancaster County on the Route 461 bridge over the Susquehanna, and they had 2 young that year. And now this is something, this was written in 2015. I don't think they could write this same thing today, but this is from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Thank you, Art. We know the eagles are a tough bunch to play against, and so are the falcons produced in the city of brotherly love. She arrived earlier this year to the Sea of Baltimore and injured and displaced our resident female just weeks ago, right about the time she was to lay eggs. She is currently laying eggs of her own at a man-made scrape that has been in use since 1979. And there's another falcon cam, Chesapeake Conservancy falcon cam. And this is on the 33rd floor of the Trans-American building in Baltimore. So this is one of the chicks she was banded on May 14th in 2013. And in 2018, we got a report of it should be nestling, the nesting female, wait a minute, the nesting female at the PA Turnpike Bridge. This is between Pennsylvania and New Jersey over the Delaware River in Bristol. The female fledged from this 215 nest at Trans-American building. She began nesting at the Turnpike Bridge in 2018. So she's the granddaughter of the female fledged at St. John the Baptist in 2013. And okay, here's 2014. These guys are a little bit older. They're about 30 days old. And this is after they fledged. What you'll see this is the female bringing food to the young one. Now 2014, one of the females fledged in 2014 at St. John the Baptist. She began nesting in 2017 at an old quarry next to a residential development in West Orange, New Jersey. And she's mated with a male from the 2013 nest on the PA Turnpike Bridge. So we have some records of where our birds are doing, where they are. Here's 2015, mom shows up at the front door. And this is how you'll see her once the eggs have hatched. She'll spend a lot of time just perched there in the window. Okay, here's there were 2 male and 2 females in 2015. Here's one. This one, 23 to 25 days old. Look at those claws. Even then, they're huge. Okay, and here's mom coming in to take a look. Okay, and this is June 8th. This is 2 of the fledgling. They spend their time like especially in the evening. They sleep on the side of the steeple. This is 2015. A female was seen later in I think this was in July in Fort Washington State Park. A female was seen from that nest in 2015. Now, what happened in 2015 is the church did this $1 million renovation of the steeple, and not really a renovation, but a restoration. There were cracks in it. There were pieces of chunks coming out of the the stuff in between the stones. And this is a picture from the top of the steeple when they did this. It's about almost a little bit less than 200 foot high is where the top of the steeple is. This is the park right next to the church. And what they did then is, unfortunately, they closed off 3 of the openings and they put a nest box in there. And they also had to redo the floor. The floor was pretty rotted. So we didn't know if she was going to take to the nest box, but the day they took scaffolding, the day they lowered it 15 feet below the nest box, the female went in and the female went right into the nest box. And then here's a picture from 2 days later, and the female's in the opening there, and then the male's on the finial above. Here's 2016. This is when the female shows up again as soon as her eggs are hatched. This is when you see her, when I see her at the opening. And this is Dad looking in to the nest box. Here we had three nestlings. This is when they start getting a little bit older. They'll come to the opening on the ledge, and they'll start flapping. As you can see, they're still covered with down, and that's down feathers clinging to the box up there. And they flap away. Okay, so here's Mom bringing dinner, and here she brings it to one of the young ones on the top of the steeple. And then this one starts chowing down. Here's a picture of the male and the female on the bottom, the male on the top left. This is a photo taken. One of the things that happens is they start wandering after they fledge. Here's he sitting on a top of a trash can. When they do this, sometimes what happens is they fledge too early and they're not really ready to fly. So they've been taken to, we've done rescues and taken them to rehab, and then I'll check them out. And if they're okay, they'll be re-released. If not, they may keep them for a week or 2 until their feathers keep growing in. This is a male on the side of the steeple in the evening. Okay, this is a female. They're just starting to flap their wings and fly, but the hardest thing for them to do is to land, actually. And so here she's thinking about going up, and then she gets up, finally gets up, and she's squawking. We started doing pizza and peregrines. This is 2016. We did it a couple of years, and then we stopped it with the pandemic. But this is right down, this is on the street below the street the church is on. This is on Main Street in Manayunk. There's a little pizza restaurant there. And if we do it again this year, I'll let the club know. But we have a crowd there. And then there's all kinds of passersby stop and take a look. Okay, 2017, when the female, she appears at April 21st. And here's a nest exchange. This is later after, I don't know, they would have hatched by then, but here's the females heading in and the males leaving. Okay, so in 2017, I joined them to go up and do the tagging. Now, when you start this the climb, you go up to the church in the loft on up above in the church. It's not down the bottom of the church, but it's up in the loft, and a door opens and you start going up the stairway. And then you get up there, and it ends on the level where the bell is. And that's where these louvers are there. Here's the bell. It's all automatic now, but once it rings, it's really loud. And this is the final trip up to the nest area. You get on this big, huge ladder. Okay, so here's the nest box that day. Inside there's, and what they did is they put up a piece of a piece of metal or something on the outside so the parents can't come in. Once we start doing the banding, they close off the outside opening. Okay, so these, and there's Art McMorris from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. He's holding one of the young ones. The other three are in these little bags here to keep them quiet. Now this one, the female, she kept squawking and squawking and squawking. So they put a falconer's cap on her, and she still didn't shut up. What we ended up doing is putting a hard hat on top of her, and then she shut up. Okay, here's a male. One of the males being checked out. Well, what he would do would be check them for parasites, take a blood sample, treat them if they, sometimes they do have parasites, and he would treat them with antibiotics, weigh them. Okay, this is, here's one of the males a week or two later out there flapping away. Here's the male in front and the female behind, and you can see all the droppings right here. And this was a female out on the sidewalk nearby. She was taken to a rehab, but then she was actually released, I think, pretty shortly after that. And this is Art McMorris again, holding her, and he takes her up to the rectory roof and releases her. So, okay, now this is one of the young ones squawking at the mother. When the young ones, they're squawking all the time. Here they are resting. When they're not squawking, they're laying down, and what they do is they lay on their bellies. The adults, they're up on their feet all the time, but not the young ones. I guess their feet aren't strong enough yet, whatever, but they lay on their bellies. So those two are taking a nap. Taking a nap on this is above the railroad tracks. Okay, now here's the male was on this is on one of the electric towers, part of it, and the male was there, so the female comes and pushes him off. But then the male comes back again, and they see mom fly by. Then they start, little pecking each other, but then she starts, biting, and he flies off again, and now she has it to herself. Here's the two young ones flying, the male on the left, the female on the right. And here's another shot of both of them. And here's another look at the female. Okay, 2018, here's the male on the left, the female on the right, the adults. Here's the dad in one of his spots. Okay, and the female, this is before she goes in. This is where, now the female is back, she's back there now, and this is where she spends the night in the wintertime, inside the nest box. And she'll spend a lot of time in the daytime out there too, basking in the sun. And a few weeks later, it's that time again. And they make frequently and often during the breeding season. Each year they lay maybe 3 to 4 eggs a year. Okay, here's she's out on a nest exchange. She's out while the male's inside. And here, a couple weeks later, you start seeing these little fluff balls in the window opening. And this is the day they went in to do the banding. there were 4 of them, but they were only able to band 1 female because the others were too far out on the ledge, and they were afraid that they would push them off. Okay, so now this is the young ones haven't fledged yet. Here's mom, she's up there eating on the left, and she takes it right into the nest box. Here's 2 of the young ones, and then 3 of the young ones. Okay, and I hear there's ones, they're starting to roam a little bit when they get over to the side of the opening. Oh, and this, let me see if you can hear this. I don't know if you can hear it. Oh, it's not working. I was trying to play them squawking. Oh, well, what I'll do at the end of the program is I'll get one of them up on my cell phone. Here's bedtime. What happens at first is the parents pluck the birds, and then they either give them pieces in the beginning. Then after that, they'll bring the bird to the young ones after it's plucked. But then at one point, they'll take the head off the bird and then deliver this carcass to the bird, and the young ones have to start plucking. So now here's a little, this is the female. They're constantly, this actually, I think is the male. But he's being harassed by the young one. And then another young one comes in, and they drop it. And if you can look here on the bottom right, this is the food, the falling down, and then dad takes off and he gets it, and he brings it back up to them on the bottom here. And this was another I think what I did is I turned off the sound of my settings. But I'll try to deal with that later. Okay. Next. Then anyway, so the male brings it back, and here's one of them, and this is, and on the right you see the one that got it is guarding it, the way we've seen other raptors do when they have a meal in front of them. Okay. 2019. There were 3 nestlings, 2 of them were banded. And here's the 3 nestlings. The 2 of them fledged, but the 3rd nestling was in the window here. But then what's starting to happen in these years is recently is sometimes they fledge and then they disappear. Unfortunately, they take off and we don't see them again. Okay, so here's mom being harassed by one of the young ones. Here's the 2 young ones, pictures of them, the male on the left and the female. Wait a minute, is that right? That's probably the other way around. I think it's the female on the left and the male on the right. Now, in 2019, in September, it was a very sad day. I got a phone call that the male was found dead with a severed leg. And this was an article in the Inquirer, Philadelphia Inquirer. I also got interviewed by WPHL 17, and they, as well as the Inquirer, used some of my photos. But it was so sad. I got the phone call about it, and when the male was found, we wondered if a drone did it because the leg was cleanly severed off. It wasn't as if somebody tried to bite it or if it got caught in something, but this is why we thought a drone severed the leg. However, it wouldn't be enough to kill the bird. It would still be alive, but we believe that it was killed by a window strike in the house where it was found. So in December, what happened prior to this in 2018, in January, the male was out on the steeple every single day from like morning till night. And then the female shows up about the 23rd of the month in January. So, and this is what had been happening every year. You know, the male showed up first, and then the female came in. Now in 2019, the female started perching out on the steeple in mid-December, and I see her every day, and she was advertising for a mate. Then on the 23rd, a male shows up, and you can see by his leg he's not banded, so we don't know where he came from. And I see him the 23rd and the 24th. Actually, I see both of them, but on the 25th, I saw both the male and female on the steeple at the same time. So that was a great Christmas present that year. So here's the two of them this is in, I believe that's a female on the left and the male on the right. This is in May 2020. Now here's mom. I don't know what happened to start this, but she does a somersault and she gets it. Here's another picture of her bringing, she was flying by. I don't know if she was bringing food to this one or not. This is in March 2020. Here's the female at the base of the crucifix on top of the steeple, and there's a kestrel lands up on top. And this was the year, a couple months later in May, when I found the young kestrels fledging. At the same time, we had the peregrine fledglings were out, and then the kestrel fledglings were out. And anyway, but as I said, they didn't hang around too long. This is in 2020. I started doing it. Actually, I started this in 2019, a peregrine watch, because we were having problems with the young ones flying off. And so we started doing a peregrine watch, and we'd have people there, you know, during the week when we expected them to fledge from morning till night, watching the nest. And here's a female that, I think this is a female, yes, a female. She was hanging around. This is one of the residents nearby on top of their utility bin. And she was taken to rehab, but then she was released the same day. And I'll just show you the video here since we don't have the sound. This is Art McMorris. He's releasing her from rehab. You know what? Let me just, no, I guess I'll just let it go. I'm afraid I wouldn't get back to the PowerPoint if I put the sound back up. Now the gloves are leather on the bottom. And he's holding it for a while until it starts making noise, so the parents know that it's there. Once it starts squawking, he releases it. And there it goes, right in the street. So and he starts to come after it, and there it goes again, but it still didn't go up, but eventually it did. Okay, next slide. This is on the 92 little fluff balls in the window. This is a female picture, and this is my picture of her landing on the steeple. This is posted on the wall in the indoor shopping center in Roxborough. And it's huge. It's maybe, I don't know, like 15 feet tall, more than that, over 20 foot tall. Yeah. Okay, since then, oh, and this isn't gonna work. Let me see if I can do this and get to, wait, let me go back one. If I can exit and get to my settings, let me try to do this so I could get the sound coming up. Oh, okay. All right, then never mind. Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Oops. Your screen sharing is paused. Okay. Resume share. Okay. And I'll have to start the slideshow again. All right. Oh, okay. Well, I tried to do from current slide. Let me go through this real quick, but it didn't work. Okay. In 2020, this is, let's see, the video will come up, but we're not going to hear the sound. So I'll just watch this for a minute or two. This is the Monsignor. Oh, oh, okay. All right, then I'll,
So can you stop sharing?
okay. You are screen sharing. I have to do stop share. Share screen. Oh no. Anyway, I just want to show you what it looks like. He's opening up the, and they're squawking away. Okay. Um, now,
Yeah, you have your sound off.
yeah, I did that in the beginning when, yeah,
I
that's,
wonder if you can change it. So in that, to the
now,
bottom right,
In your screen here.
oh no, I didn't want this. Okay, let me get back to the PowerPoint. Here's where we were. Okay. All right. All right. Anyway, so what's happened in the last couple of years is the female, this year she's gonna be 16, which is pretty old um for a peregrine. And what happens usually is when they mate, it's till death do us part. Um, unless something happens like it happened here previously, they're usually taken out by another peregrine. Either a male or female will come in and they'll severely injure or kill the female at the nest, and then the new one, male or female, comes in and takes over. So we really expect that anytime. It's surprising that she's made it this long, but the other thing that's happened in the past couple of years is that there have been unhatched eggs every year. The fledglings haven't been doing that well either. They've often been fledging and then leaving and not coming back. They do take some wild flights when they long flights after they fledge, but we haven't had a whole lot of success. But this year, one of them had fledged early. It was injured. It was taken to rehab, and then it was released at the Tacony Bridge in New Jersey. And that's because the parents there were still feeding young. They couldn't release it back at the steeple because there were no other young that the parents were feeding, and they wouldn't necessarily feed it. So it has been there have been a lot of problems with their nests in the past few years. Anyway, what happened though in December 2021, the peregrines were taken off the endangered species list in Pennsylvania. Now they're considered threatened. At that point, there were 73 nesting pairs statewide with 22 pairs on the cliffs. And this is the ratio they were looking for because the nests on the city nests are only about 1/4 as successful as the cliff nests. Because of, various reasons, the city birds tend not to make it. I set up a falcon watch for a couple of years in Harrisburg. There's a falcon watch that's conducted every year, and I went out there and joined them for a day to get the idea of how it works. There's other places where they rescue birds in nesting on bridges. There's a lot of times what happens on their first flight, they'll end up in the river. So there's some places where they actually have a peregrine watch, and they go out and they'll be on the boat when they're waiting for the young one to fledge, and they rescue the young one from the river. Somewhere on the Susquehanna, that's being done right now in Pennsylvania. Anyway, so they're doing good. There are still problems, as I mentioned, you know, with urban sites, even the cliff sites. DDT is still being used in South America, so that's having an effect on peregrines. In Philadelphia, in 2022, 2023, there were 7 nesting pairs. Let me see. There's actually 4 of them on bridges, and then I think there's more than that. There's the Ben Franklin Bridge, the Walt Whitman Bridge. The Ben Franklin Bridge is actually considered a New Jersey peregrine because the nest is now on the New Jersey side where they're nesting. The Walt Whitman Bridge, the Girard Point Bridge that I mentioned, and also in 2022 there started to be a new nest on the Route 1 bridge over the Schuylkill River in East Falls. They're nesting on that bridge. The other nester on buildings, there's a nest on Philadelphia City Hall, and there's some nests on some other buildings in the city, as well as the steeple in Manayunk. And on this particular map, it shows you where the nests are. The cliff nests in the green. I actually had the privilege of going to one of these a couple of years ago, and when they were banding, and what they did, we were on top of the cliff, and then they rappelled down the cliff to the nest, to the ledge where the nest box is. They grabbed the young ones, and then it came back up to the top, you know, and then they banded it, and then rappelled back down. And in the meantime, the parents are flying around and squawking. But the cliff nesting sites, I know that the state really, they're still pretty secretive about them because they were trying to protect the birds. For a long time, like, they didn't want to let people know where the nesting sites were, and they're still pretty secretive. So that's the status in Pennsylvania. In nearby states, in New Jersey and in New York, they're still considered endangered, and they're still doing banding. But they're talking about taking them off the endangered species list. Some other states, they're still considered endangered, but a lot of states, they have stopped doing banding of peregrines. Now, this is my last slide. This is a poem I wrote in, I think it was 2019. I was there the day after the last one was in the last one left. This was their place for a while. Now there is no squawking to break the silence, no one begging mom and dad for food, no feathers flying from the steeple. Now there are only city sounds and emptiness. There are still white stains on the steeple and white circles on the sidewalk to remind us this was their place for a while. They flew from steeple to tower and back again, chasing mom, dad, and each other. They basked in the sunshine, preening their new feathers. They spent the night next to one another on the steeple. This was their place for a while. They are fledglings no more. They have gone to find a place and a mate and carry on their destiny. This was their place for a while. That's it. Thank you.